This review was filmed during the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Without the labor of the writers and actors currently on strike, the works being covered here wouldn't exist. I fully support both the WGA and SAG-AFTRA in their fight for fair treatment and compensation against a system that continually denies them such. While a full boycott has not been called for, SAG-AFTRA has asked that everyone who does media about film and TV refrain from promoting struck content during this time. From what I can tell based on guidelines released, independent reviews do not constitute promotion of work, but as critical assessment of a work of art. Any praise I give to these works should be seen purely as praise for the artists, writers, and actors who created it. If anything, the praise is emphasizing that the writers, actors, and other artists deserve more compensation because they are who make these works possible. Additionally, this video was not made using any studio-provided screeners or materials. Do not support any studios during the strike. If you want to know more information, there are links down in the description for you to follow. This show just really couldn't help itself, could it? It just really couldn't find a way to land it. Either way, hello everyone, welcome to the latest Minty reviews, and we are back for these reviews for Marvel's Secret Invasion. And unlike the other ones, due to all of the strikes and everything, I actually hadn't been doing these reviews as they were coming out. I'm now doing them later, but to, be time sensitive here with this stuff for the most part, I'm just putting the last 2 episodes of Secret Invasion together because, let's be honest here, it's Secret Invasion, not a lot was going on, so you can just kind of put the last 2 together and it'd be a lot more to talk about. But oh boy, do I have things to talk about. So, as I've been doing with the reviews, with these Minty reviews, I will be doing a non-spoiler section first, followed by a spoiler section where I'll just basically get into what I need to get into for the episodes. So, starting off, non-spoilers for both of them, non-spoilers right here. As I mentioned in the cold open, this show did not land at all. It's amazing how excited I was for this show based on the concept of it being Secret Invasion, of it being like a return to like spy thriller, of it being somewhat of a callback to Winter Soldier, a little bit of Civil War kind of things with some aliens involved with the Skrulls. However, by the end of this series, it didn't do any of that well at all. It never necessarily justified why it existed, and honestly it kind of put the MCU back rather than moving forward because of just some various choices they made in especially these last 2 episodes that, one, are very big questions that are now asked in the MCU that they had better explain in movies that they probably will just forget about in the coming movies, and bigger questions of why did they do them to begin with. And why did they do certain things in the series at all that kind of ruin certain characters and ruin certain storylines they had building? There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in this series that is just simply not well written. And it is, or not well written and not well executed. The thing that the one standout thing this entire time has simply been the acting. The acting from every single actor involved in the series has been great. Sam Jackson is delivering some of his best Nick Fury performances, even if we haven't really gotten full Nick Fury in this series. Olivia Colman is literally the standout of the show, and every scene she's in as Sonya Falsworth is the best scene in the entire series, especially these last 3 episodes that she was in, especially the last 2, where she didn't get that much screen time, but her screen time is the best stuff in the entire episode. And I'll be honest, Emilia Clarke, for the entire series, was incredibly misused for the entirety of it, but she was delivering on the acting side of things. Just all of that, all the acting was good. All the acting was so good. It's just the actual plots they were doing, the storyline of the whole series, and the writing of it all was so bad compared to MCU standards. I guess not even standards, because pretty much all of the Disney Plus shows have had issues like this, but this is just exemplified issues of what was happening here. But yeah, these last 2 episodes did not land the series at all, and it did not help in making the series worthwhile or meaningful. And the worst thing about it is when I finish watching the series, usually I'm like, okay, that was a series, I'm excited to see what the next thing is, or I'm excited to see what they do with this, because that's how I felt after WandaVision, I felt after Loki, that's how I felt after Moon Knight, after Miss Marvel, Hawkeye, it's how I felt after all of them, being like, okay, that was fun, that was a neat thing, I wonder what we're going to do here. After this one, I felt mad. I just felt legitimately mad, why did I just waste my time watching this when it felt like what they were doing wasn't meaningful? And if it was meaningful in the incredibly wrong way. But yeah, this series was a mess. It was just simply a mess. So that's going to be the end of non-spoilers. Clearly I didn't like it, but I kind of need to get into it further and into it deeper just to kind of explain why I don't like it so much. So without any further, let's get into the spoilers. So in 3, 2, 1, spoilers here, spoilers, Super Skrulls, I guess we'll start there. Super Skrulls, not an issue. Like, honestly, Super Skrulls, I'm not upset Super Skrulls are in the MCU now. Like, we have a Super Skrull now. It is, as I mentioned a couple of reviews ago, it is Emilia Clarke. It is Gaia. She is now the MCU Super Skrull. There is a big CG Super Skrull on Super Skrull fight where both of them get all the powers that they need to get, and they fight, and then Gaia wins. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So let's go back. Let's go back to Harvest, episode 5. Episode 5, as in the tradition of the MCU series so far, is the villain backstory episode kind of thing, sort of, where we get Gravik. We get a lot of Gravik. And the unfortunate thing about this episode is that we get a lot of Gravik. And I will say, Kingsley Ben-Adir, great. He's great as Gravik. He's not the issue here. The issue is, again, the writing of it. And Gravik this whole time has been a main issue for me for this series because he did not have a purpose. He did not have an actual full antagonistic purpose. And if they wanted, they should have gone one of two ways with him. Either just make him a villain and just make him have this villainous plot and this whole idea of like, I just want world domination, whatever, and not actually involve the refugee aspect of the Skrulls. Or make him a sympathetic villain that you want to sympathize with, and he's just going about it in kind of the wrong way or more extreme way, but can be reasoned with. They did both and then went in just the dictator method, which is like, what? You've been spending this whole series trying to have us sympathize with him and the Skrull refugees, and then episode 5, at the very beginning of the episode, he just goes and just murders like all of his refugees that are working for him because they're like, bro, your plan's not working, what are you doing here? And he's like, no, you're questioning me now, you're dead. And then just kills them. So it's like, so what was the point of all of your plans then? What was the point of you being in this series to begin with? And what was the point of you getting all these Skrulls together if you're just going to kill them anyway? And it didn't make any sense. And it made it even worse later, where Rhodey, who is a disguised Skrull, is trying to convince the president to just nuke New Skrullos. And I understand. Nuke, like sending a nuke from American soil onto Russian soil, starts World War III. That kind of fulfills Gravik's plan. However, he's going to do that to just murder a bunch of innocent Skrull civilians that are literally just there as refugees. So he's again just murdering his own people that he has spent the whole series saying that he's trying to save. What are you doing? Like, what is your point? And it's even worse because in the final episode, when we actually have the battle between Gaia and Gravik, and I'll get to how they get to the battle here in a little bit with the Harvest itself and what that is. When we actually have the battle, we get Gravik talking to Fury because Gaia goes there disguised as Nick Fury. We get to have a conversation between Gravik and Fury as if it's kind of like a culmination of all the issues they've had and all the issues that Gravik especially had with Fury, and airing out their dirty laundry, and Gravik basically telling Fury like, hey, you failed us and this is what's happening now. Unfortunately, we don't actually fully get that because it's not actually Nick Fury. So Nick Fury never actually apologizes to Gravik for being kind of an asshole to all of them. He never gets a chance to actually say his side of the story. And we never get to hear his side of the story either. We never hear that. So we never hear exactly what Fury was trying to do this whole time. Did he actually look at all these planets and was like, no, I can't actually find you a planet on your own because the Kree are still out there and they're going to fight you somehow anyway. Or I tried looking, but there's nowhere out there that can sustain all of you. Or we never get that. We never fully get that. We get Gaia's interpretation of it just to get Gravik to talk and get him riled up and in order to use the Harvest. But we never get an actual face-to-face confrontation with Fury and Gravik, which is what the show has been building towards this whole time. So again, what was the point of it? And also, with that, to connect to Gaia, they killed Talos. They actually just killed Talos. No, he died at the end of episode 4. They killed Talos. Great. Great. So now we lost Maria Hill. We lost Talos. We got back Everett Ross, and we got back Rhodey, I guess, but we lost Talos and we lost Maria Hill. Two very important characters, very important side characters in the MCU at this point that were like glue characters. And this show just threw them away. And threw them away in such an unceremonial way as well that it hurt. It actually hurt for them to do that. So now let's get on to the whole Nick Fury side of things and explain the Super Skrull stuff. The reason that Gravik was doing all of this stuff is to get this thing called the Harvest, which is a thing that is now introduced in the MCU, which, to be fair to the MCU and to be fair to comic book bullshit, is a thing that honestly makes weirdly enough sense to just exist. It is a vial of comic booky chemical BS that mixes the DNA of everyone who was involved in the Battle of Earth in Endgame against Thanos, including Thanos. There's like a little scene where we get to see like some of the names running through, and it has like Thor, Captain America, Thanos, Hulk, a bunch of people. I'm assuming Howard the Duck's in there too, and that's just a funny thing to think about, is that whoever takes the Harvest also gets the powers of Howard the Duck, whatever those powers would be. So that's like one redeeming quality of this whole show, is that now Super Skrull has Howard the Duck in them. And that's the only redeeming quality the show has. But either way, so that's the Harvest, which, all things considered, that makes sense to exist. That does make sense. And that is how they explain Super Skrull and how Super Skrull has all the powers. And that's what we get to. We get Fury teaming up with Sonya to find the Harvest, to get it before Gravik does. And they do. They go to Finland. There's like a bunch of like fake Nick Fury graves that he explains. And we get a full awesome, like kind of awesome montage of him suiting back up as Nick Fury. And we get Nick Fury back. Like, we've waited this whole series for it. We finally get Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. back. And he has the Harvest, which is, cool. They do a whole thing with Gaia where, passes it off to her. She goes and does the whole Nick Fury thing with Gravik. They take the Harvest. They become Super Skrull. They have a fight. All that good stuff. Meanwhile, we have Fury and Sonya just, like, tricking Skrull Rhodey, Rava, I think is the Skrull's name, and tricking them into evacuating the president from the hospital and telling him basically, hey, call off the nuke strike. And they're basically doing, like, actual spy shit attacking them. Which is cool. That's fine, whatever. And, Rava dies at the end of this whole point. Sonya's there as well. Fury's there. They rescue the president. And they get him out of there. And they tell the president, call off the strike. You've been played this whole time. Don't blow up your own people. Because if you do, you're going to blow up, like, thousands of innocent people that are just trapped there. Both Skrulls and humans. So call it off. They call it off. We're all good. So then, just to speed through, because we've probably kind of gone through everything in this episode, to then just get to the main thing about these two episodes, that the actual ending, and why this is such a bad show. It ends with the president getting saved, and then making a public announcement as the president to basically say, hey, I was saved from the Skrulls. So you know what that means, right? That means the Skrulls and any alien force that comes to Earth, we're going to consider an enemy to the planet and an enemy to the state, and we're going to kill them on sight. And then it leads to a very much too real montage of a bunch of very patriotic and very nationalistic people going around the world murdering higher-ranking individuals thinking they're all Skrulls, including actually just murdering the Prime Minister of the UK, who wasn't a Skrull, who was actually a human. And that's just too real. That is just too real of a thing and too traumatizing of a thing, and the MCU just did it in the series. I'm not going to say without thinking, but they did it. And they didn't need to. They didn't need to do that. And also, clearly the president got the wrong message from what Fury and Sonya did, and honestly what Talos was trying to do. So now in the MCU, we have two things. We have one, Gaia, who is, literally speaking, the strongest person in the entirety of the MCU before they introduce any of the cosmic beings like the Beyonder, Galactus, anything like that. She is now the strongest person. Unless we're counting Scarlet Witch, unless she also has Scarlet Witch's DNA in there too, which then she is still the strongest. We now have her, who is the strongest person in the entire MCU, with basically no way of being beaten other than by another Super Skrull. Great. I hope they do something with that at some point. Let's be honest, they won't. And second, now every Skrull is not only a refugee on Earth, but also now going to be basically systematically murdered by humans. Great. That's just adding more onto the already very bad metaphor of the Skrulls at all. It's in general. That's a bad look. That is a bad look, Marvel. That is a bad look, MCU. That is a bad look, Disney. Why did you do this? Why did you do this at all? And to make matters worse, the actual series itself ends with Fury and Priscilla actually getting together again. They're fully together, and Fury convinces Priscilla to go with him up to Saber, because they just got word that there's going to be a meeting between the Kree and the Skrulls, and it's going to be peace meetings, so they can finally have peace from the Kree-Skrull war. So you're telling me they could have just done that at the beginning of the series, and had just avoided all of this, but they didn't. They instead went with the humans murdering refugee Skrull storyline, and then saying the Skrulls could be saved at the end if they had just talked to the Kree the whole time. Why? And that then ends with the whole point of, what was the point of this whole series other than just ruining the Skrulls, ruining Nick Fury for most of the series, making the most overpowered character in the entire MCU. Now, granted, I love me some Emilia Clarke, so I'm not upset with her being the most powerful being in the MCU. I just don't like the fact they did it. And having a villain character that made no sense by the end, and then having it all wrapped up in a way that makes everything worse. What was the point of this series? Like, legitimately, what was the point of this series? Unless it was just simply to make everything else in the MCU feel worse. Because this supposedly connects right into the Marvels. How? Is it going to be the Kree-Skrull negotiations? If so, we gotta get the Skrulls off Earth. Well, you gotta mention the fact that they're all now being, like, systematically killed. So you gotta mention that. You're gonna mention Talos? Probably not. You're gonna mention Emilia Clarke's Gaia? Probably not. So what are they gonna do? What is the point? What was the point of this show? And it just makes me upset. It makes me really mad in a way that I probably shouldn't be, because it's a TV series. And no, I'm not this angry with it. I'm just upset at how disappointing this all was, and how much it could have just been better if they didn't use the Skrulls, they just used Kree, because we already know the Kree are basically space Nazis anyway. So just use the Kree instead, and just had the Skrulls just be byproducts of the whole thing, or had it actually be a spy thriller. Because at no point in the series did it ever feel like the Skrulls were like this mysterious, like, force. We all knew who the Skrulls were. They basically mentioned them at the very beginnings, like, yep, no, they're a Skrull, they're a Skrull, they're a Skrull. So there was no paranoia the whole time about the Skrulls. They were all just there. So yeah, that's my review. More of a rant than a review of anything, but that's my rant about Secret Invasion, the worst show that Marvel has done. The worst thing Marvel has done in the MCU this entire time. And it reminded me a lot, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, and I honestly don't care, because I stand by this opinion. You can watch my reactions to them. She-Hulk is the best MCU series they've done so far. And the reason why is because I understood what it was the whole time. It was a comedy. It was a comedy about a character that is She-Hulk. That is what it was. This show didn't know what it was. At all. From beginning to end, did not know what it was. She-Hulk did. And yes, people are upset about the ending of She-Hulk, and how it was like, oh, it's just breaking everything. Yes, that's the point. That is the point. It is a satire. It was a parody. It was calling out the poor writing of the rest of the MCU. And in the very next series, it has poor writing, and literally ends with them doing a blood thing, like a super soldier serum thing. So, She-Hulk's great. Watch She-Hulk. It's great. But either way, that's my rant of Secret Invasion. I'm glad to finally get this off my chest and get this out there. Secret Invasion is a bad show. Secret Invasion is a very bad show, and I feel really bad for all the actors in it. And I feel incredibly bad for Colby Smulders, who was in one episode. Though I do feel good for her and her agent, though, because she got that money. She was credited in every single episode as being a special guest star, and she was in the first episode, and that was it. So, good for her getting that contract, getting that money. Unless it means she was supposed to be in the whole series and was cut. In which case, still good she got the money, bad they cut her. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what do you think about Secret Invasion at this point, and what do you think about all this? What do you think about all this and the MCU going forward? And I might just take a break from the MCU and from Marvel a little bit, just because I'm really aggravated with everything they're doing. I just really am. So let me know all that down in the comments. And if you like this review, this rant, leave a like as well. Helps out. And if you want to see more stuff that is more positive, leave a subscription as well. It does truly help out. I mean, a lot to the channel as well. And I promise I'm actually a lot more positive on things. I actually like reviewing things, I like watching things, and like things. It's just this I didn't. So if you want to see more, subscribe as well. And until next time, right over here is going to be a playlist for another review series for Star Trek Strange New World. I actually like that series. Go watch that. And if you want to see something else, there's another thing that YouTube recommends for you as well. And until next time, just stay good and stay not this series. And I'll see you in the next one. Until then, peace everyone. Peace.